I'm here with Anna Crutchfield, who makes her professional debut next Saturday at B2 Fighting Series 179. Anna, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm very happy to be talking with you. Basically a week out. How are you feeling?
Feel amazing. Luckily I didn't have to do like a big weight cut or anything for this fight. So I've just been eating great and then training really hard. So I felt awesome going into this one.
Awesome. How excited are you that it's your professional debut?
Oh my goodness. I feel like this is so long in the making. So I'm just glad it's finally here. Super excited about it.
Awesome. Awesome. What was the decision to finally go pro?
Honestly, it just became very hard to find amateur fights and matchups. We wanted to get in maybe one or two more amateur fights last year, but I had tons and tons of fights fall through throughout the year. So finally, we were like, whatever, let's just go pro. So I was hoping it would be easier to find a matchup as a pro, and I had a couple turn this one down, and then finally we had someone take it. So we're excited about it.
Perfect, perfect. I wanted to ask you about your first amateur fight. I believe that you lost it, and so I just wanted to know, like, what were the emotions like after that first amateur fight? Like, did it deter you from like doing this, or like what was kind of like your mindset?
So honestly, so I had my first fight back in 2000, my first MMA fight back in 2016. Um, at that time, MMA wasn't really my love. I was really truly a kickboxer. I didn't really have any grappling experience, wrestling or jujitsu. But I turned 18 and the rest of my team fought MMA, and my coach at that point was kind of like, all right, we got you an MMA fight. Like it was just part of the journey. I just felt like I was not properly prepared for that. So going out of the first fight, I was like, wow, this was so much different than I had expected. Mainly because I had had tons of amateur experience in boxing and kickboxing. Um, but I was not prepared for the different type of pressure and the aggressiveness of someone who really just doesn't want to stand up.
Gotcha, gotcha. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And then finally, before we get to your upcoming fight, for anybody that does not know your story, how did you originally get into mixed martial arts?
So I've been involved in combat sports since I was about 12 years old. I started boxing at age 12, and then I moved into the kickboxing side. And then, like I said, I took a fight when I turned 18. Didn't really have much experience in the MMA world. I was truly like a striker. And then a couple years ago, I decided to make the transition. I moved camps, moved to Alabama, and now here we are a couple years later, and I feel like my entire game has completely evolved. I've found my true home now.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, and with that, like, you fought once a year, 2016, 2017, 2018, and then it really ramped up when you came back to the sport in 2021. What were you doing during that break? Like, was it like, were you still trying to decide if you wanted to do MMA, or was it just hard finding fights?
Yeah, so I had first one in 2016, and then after that, I went back and we just kickboxed until 2018. Took another fight, but again, in between those two fights, not much had changed in my training or my game plan going into it. So after my second fight, that's when I didn't get finished, but again, it was the same thing that happened in my first fight. I would land a couple good shots and immediately tie up on the clinch, immediately held on the cage. So it was just not at all what I thought this was going to be. So it took a couple years. I was on the national kickboxing team for Waco. Competed internationally a couple times in those years for kickboxing. And then that's when I kind of moved camps, really dove into the wrestling and the jujitsu side of it, and kind of just completed my game.
Gotcha. Awesome. All right. Well, let's talk about it. You're fighting Cheyenne Bowers. What do you think of the matchup?
This matchup's at 125.
What um what do you think of the matchup?
Um, I think it's gonna be pretty much the same of what I normally get. Lots of wrestling pressure. I believe she calls herself a grappler, so I definitely think that's gonna be her game plan coming in. But I mean, I know that across the board, so it's pretty much what I expect.
On paper, it's a actually interesting fight. Could be very, very fun. Like as you said, if she doesn't come with the wrestling shoes. So what did you think of her first pro fight?
Um, I know she was submitted by armbar in her first fight. Just a lot of her fights, I just feel like most of it turns into that grappling game, but I don't feel like she is going to be able to do that. I think that in their head, that's exactly what their game plan is, to come out and immediately shoot for that body lock. She likes to go for the body lock, or whatever takedown she can get in. I expect that early, but after those first few are stuffed, and then she's like, "Oh crap!" She realizes she's swimming in deep waters. Then I don't expect it to go past the first, but I'm prepared for anything that happens.
I love it. I love it. So, growing up with combat sports and coming from like a boxing, kickboxing, it's like striking, like how much work have you put into your wrestling? Like, is it something that you really only focus on because you're such a credentialed kickboxer?
Oh my goodness. Let me tell you, Alex, I feel like we're getting ready for the state championships every day at our gym. We're wrestling all the time, from every position you can think of, on the cage, off the cage, out in space. One time I was making fun of my coach because he was like, "All right, guys, today for striking, we're going to work fit ins." And I was like, "Well, fit ins are wrestling." So, okay. But yeah, I definitely spent a ton of time in those areas.
Oh, it's fucking great. Well, all right. You kind of alluded to it a couple minutes ago, but at the end of the day, April 1st, how do you get your hand raised?
KO, TKO,
I love
first
it.
round.
I love it. First round knockout. And then finally, I just wanted to know, what do you want your 2023 to look like, and like, what are some kind of goals that you're setting for yourself?
I would like to finish this year at least 3-0, maybe 4-0. I don't know if we'll be able to get four matchups in by the end of the year. But if everything works out how I have it planned, then I'll be 3-0 going into 2024, ready to fight on the contender series by 4-0, 5-0.
Awesome. Perfect. That's awesome. And I just want to say thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. If you want to plug your social media, any sponsors you might have, and if you want to thank anybody, the floor is yours.
Yeah, for sure. Across all platforms, Twitter, Instagram, I'm a crutch 18. And then on Facebook, just Anna Crutchfield. But of course, I have to shout out my team at Spartan Fitness and all my coaches there, everything they've done. And of course, all the sponsors I have tons, but they all know who they are. Thank you for supporting me through this journey.